Hi, everybody. It's Gil. It's Monday, May 23rd. It's about 4 hours after the market closed, and some of you may have seen me on Fox Business News today. I was talking about a few ideas that we're looking at right now. You know, we're not all that enthusiastic about the long side of the market, but there could be some things that you should be paying attention to here that might be telling. You know, I know today was terrible action. The Nasdaq gapped down and volume picked up just a hair, but you know, let's remember something here. Friday was options expiration day, and that was real light volume. So today's a little bit higher than that, not much. You know, it's not like everybody was running for the exits, although stocks pulled back, but you know, that's been pretty consistent with the trend here. Nasdaq is now down 4% off its peak, while the S&P is down 3%, but it's kind of zigzaggy and choppy and difficult. And if you're trying to short, that's hard. If you're trying to go long, that's challenging as well. So really, our position has been to remain mostly in cash and to sit back and kind of see how things develop here. I do think that it's pretty obvious today with this gap down that the market's been in a correction. And I did find it interesting that while I was at the Fox Studios in LA today, I was watching some of the other commentators from the day, and uh, noticing that you even have the guys who've been permabulls are now conceding that we're going to have a correction. And I always love it when you have people going up and saying, oh, we're going to correct 10%, we're going to correct 15%. Well, to me, that's all baloney because you don't know how far the market's coming down. All you know is that the market is coming down. Okay, that's all you know, and that's all you can know for sure. So you watch what the stocks are doing. If there's anything acting well, you want to make note of that, and that's what we're doing here. Uh, I think that this could be a little bit obvious, and you can see over here on the left side of my screen the minis, the S&P mini futures here, the Nasdaq 100 mini futures. They're kind of flattish. They were down earlier. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But you can see that you know, you got this sell-off here today, and it's not really the end of the world. Today's volume on the NYC was lighter. Uh, the S&P also undercut the low of last Tuesday, and you're getting into the structure on both of the indexes. And so you could be in a position now to bounce. You notice you get this little trend line here in this channel, zoop there. You know, well, doesn't look too good. Let's try this again. There we go. Someday I'll learn how to use this. But you know, meanwhile, you get this little channel going on, and it looks kind of neat. You know, nice and tidy. So maybe just zip around in here. Who knows? But here's what I thought was very interesting today. Uh, you know, aside from the fact that the dollar, here's a UUP, which is the US Dollar Index ETF. Dollar was up, okay, so that's bad for stocks. But gold is up, so supposedly dollar up is bad for gold, but gold is up today. Bonds were up, so you know, what does that tell you? You probably had a little bit of a fear bid going on today, money moving into bonds, the dollar, and gold. And as everybody knows, Utah has announced that they're going to start accepting gold and silver as legal tender, which is interesting. You know, back in the 70s, there were some gas stations that would only accept silver coins when you paid for gas. And that's how badly people felt about the dollar back then. So, you know, these days, similar situation. And Minnesota, I hear, is right behind Utah in terms of wanting to recognize gold and silver as legal tender money. But I thought it was interesting that in spite of all the downside today, Netflix had a pocket pivot, and we put out an email a little while ago about that. And Chipotle Mexican Grill had a pocket pivot. We saw a marginal one in Panera Bread, but I think it's significant that you have CMG and Netflix, which have been two big leading stocks in this rally, flash pocket pivots on a day when the market's getting kicked around. And all the permabulls on Fox are turning into correction mavens and conceding that we're going into a correction. You know, that's not really clear to us. We think the market could just as easily be choppy, sideways, and difficult. So, again, our tack is if we're going to test anything, we're going to do it in small size, and we're going to kind of kick back and let things develop. You know, sell in May and go away. You know, that's one of those things. We don't really adhere to stuff like that. A lot of times it's baloney, and there have been a lot of years where May has been a very good month for me. You know, on the long side, and also for Dr. K. So you can't really operate on that assumption, but it almost feels like you could sell in May and go away simply because we may just be in this choppy environment. You know, I like Salesforce. I talked about that on Fox. They're incorporating social media into their product suite. I think that's significant. And I think social media as a tool for marketing is very powerful, and I think that there will be companies and established companies. You don't have to get sucked into LinkedIn at the highs and then watch it come in. You can let that form a base, but meanwhile, I think there are other stocks that will make good use of social media, incorporating it into their offering of products, and we'll be able to make some serious money incorporating that into an overall package like Salesforce does. So you have a Bible gap. It's got to hold the low here about 142. It's logical to get some overhead from here, but this could come out. It could also pull back and noodle around depending on what the market does. So you do want to keep an eye on that. I think VMware also looks pretty reasonable here as well. Let me just push these charts out of the way. Get them out of my way so I don't have to worry about them. Back in their corners. And have them stay there. But you look at VMware, here's a nice cup and handle formation, big cup. Now notice you had a huge run here, and you come all the way up, and now you had one late stage base tries to break out. There's no real handle. This is trying to form a handle, but it's really only 1 week down, and you move up ties and you fail. So now this looks a little bit better because you are building a handle now. And notice how you got some support last week. Volume last week was up from the prior week. Nothing spectacular, but still you closed way in the peak of the weekly range, found support at the 10-week moving average. This stock is on my watch list. Okay, TIBCO I think is a very interesting story in social media, but it's going to need some time to develop. It's bumping around the 10-week here. If you look at it on the daily chart, it's just above the 50-day. So, it's close. But you could see this thing correct and pull back down in here. I'd probably want to see it hold the prior breakout. If the market continues to come lower, or if the market starts to turn around, then I think it should find support here and go from here as well. So I'd be keeping an eye on that. Fortinet's another name we like, but it's very volatile. Had a pocket pivot 3 days ago on Thursday of last week. It was a marginal pocket pivot, and you pull in today towards the 20-day, which is the green line right here. It could pull back some more. I don't know if it's going to try to build a base, but it does have this Bible gap up here. A little bit of porosity as it pulls below, and it's acting okay. I mentioned that on Fox because I like the story, and I think the stock has acted constructively while the market's been correcting. It's been trying to make highs. Now that doesn't mean it can't zig and zag around, and you can see that overall the stock tends to be erratic. At some point, if this is any good, it's got to settle down and go higher. But just one to keep an eye on. I'm much more interested in stocks like Salesforce, VMware, Chipotle Mexican Grill, and Netflix on the pocket pivots than I would be on this. But I did talk about it on Fox today, and I thought I should maybe cover it in a little video with you guys this afternoon. Now, Molycorp's another one. I like Molycorp's story. Dr. K-like story. He made some nice money on this move here. Stock failed here, so we were gone immediately. Once it broke the 10-day moving average, you should have been too. Now it's broken below the 50-day moving average, but notice how it's pulling back on top of this 55 price level here, which is a logical area for it to pull back. It's 26% off of its peak, and that's a decent correction. It could pull off more, 30-35% possibly, but for now I'm watching to see if it holds this 55 level, nibble a little bit here, and see if it doesn't build a base. But you got to remember one thing: it needs to build a base. And here you have your big move after coming public. So here's your first base, your second base, and now you're working on the third base. You're 4 weeks into it. Notice how your ranges are starting to get a little compressed. We'll see how we finish this week. We're just getting going and see if it holds. But it would be logical for it to try and round out in here if it was going to set up again. And of course, that's going to depend on the general market. So, net, we kind of like this on the pullback here. We'd just be watching it. On the daily chart, you do get some good upside volume. Notice that selling interest is drying up, and you had very low volume today on the sell side, with the market down pretty sharply. And remember, Molycorp's a pretty volatile stock, but today it was holding up, reasonably well, given the fact that the market was getting kicked around pretty good. So we thought that was interesting. The situation with gold right now is just that we like the fact that it's held the 50-day. Now, typically when gold is in an uptrend, it holds the 50-day moving average. Notice before we used to talk about silver holding the 20-day. That was its nature. And gold GLD here tends to hold the 50-day moving average, and it has done that on the pullbacks. And you got a pocket pivot on Friday, so in the GLD you had pocket pivot. So we think that at the very least it might be trying to build a bottom with all the things going on in the global financial arena with the sovereigns and everything else that's terrible about the world of finance today. You might see gold as a safe haven continue to turn and rally here. Now, what happens to silver in that case? It may be that silver gets dragged up. Silver's in a deep dive here, so it's possible it could rally back up to 38. I would expect that if the GLD continues higher and makes new highs, it will probably drag silver with it. It's not clear that silver would necessarily make new highs, although it's possible, but we think that with that sort of inverted V-shaped climax top, that silver isn't really going to be off and running to the races for some time. But it could have been, it could have made a bottom in here, and maybe it'll try and work its way higher and zig and zag its way and build a long consolidation from which it could break out from. Right now, we tend to favor the GLD, so we're hanging with that. Anyways, these are some thoughts. I think it's very interesting that you get some pocket pivots and big leaders, Netflix and CMG, on a day when the market's very weak. And basically, we're just watching what acts well, and you probably want to go over your own watch list and look for things like that as well. Given that the market did make a new low today, here you're now looking for the first day of a rally attempt. So you're now at least 4 days away from a potential follow-through. So it's still early to call follow-through, but if you're only off 3 or 4%, do you really need a follow-through? And given that this has been a QE2 market, anything could happen here. So we would pretty much stay flexible and, you know, not just playing lightly here, nothing really to get involved with. And that's pretty much it for now. So we'll catch everybody tomorrow after the close at 1:15 p.m. Pacific time, my time, for our live webinar with Dr. K. And thanks for listening, you guys, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Okay? Good night.